Alright, and welcome to the second daily Kaupen Yap over here, and let's just jump straight in. So today I wanted to talk about the fact that when you really think about it, you can do anything. Now, this is sort of an empty platitude. Right? Oh, remember, you can do anything. Well, first of all, I said you can do anything. I didn't say you can do everything. Those are two very different distinctions, even though it sounds like it's almost the same. And when I say anything, that also does come with an asterisk attached to it, because of course, let's say you're like 5'2", you're probably not going to end up in professional basketball. Okay, that's like one of the major examples that usually, gets pushed. It's not impossible, but it is very unlikely. Like, it's like super unlikely you gotta be like, I mean, I don't even know, right? In any other way, you would need to be like world class in like 18 other different things. So it's unlikely. But unlikely doesn't mean impossible. And I think realistic in this sense is also not right. So it's very hard to like do a easy delineation of like, okay, this is actually possible or not possible. But when you realize you could in theory do anything, the example that came to mind is if you had a goal, let's say, for example, a lot of people when summer rolls around, they want to be, they want to lose a little bit of weight. They want to put on a little bit of muscle. When you really think about it, if you actually wanted to do it, there is really nothing standing in your way. Now you can say, yeah, but I don't. And it's like, yeah, but no outside force is basically not making you work out, and basically not, you just needed to count your calories, making sure you consume a little less calories than you burn, and then basically also working out like 3 times a week, and basically just eating more protein, or just, prioritizing protein. Really nothing's like actually stopping you from that, except for yourself. Now you might say, yeah, but I get home late and then I'm tired. It's like, okay, but is anything stopping you from doing that? So it's not really the case, right? And that sort of leads me to the second point of this, where any task can be more or less sort of organized in a matrix where you have like two, or I guess a coordinate system where you go from easy to hard and from simple to complex, right? So any task can be categorized in this way. No task is just easy or hard. I mean, they can be, but you have to have a second axis in which you look at this, right? So I got a couple of examples. Making a cup of tea or tying your shoelaces. Both things those are tasks that are both easy and simple, because, well, I don't know what to tell you. It's like, the actual things you do. Now you can say tying your shoelace, you still have to learn that. Yeah, but once you've learned it, it's simple, it's easy. There's not a lot of steps that you have to take. So everything is fairly straightforward. Whereas, I don't even know, if you were to, let's say, even do cook something, right? Even that could turn in, like, it's easy as in, what are you really doing? Well, you're chopping, let's say, onions. All right, that's a very easy thing to do. It's not hard. However, it can be complex because there's like a lot of different things. Maybe it says like you have to saute your something, and you have to, I don't know, like other sort of words that you're like, I don't even know what this is. So the idea is that, so like complex means that the entire task has a structural component that is difficult, let's say, right? So there's a structural component that's difficult. Might be, for example, cook something. There's like 12 different things that you need to do. That's why it's a little more on the complex side, right? And then hard means that there's a like challenge associated with this task. So, for example, what would be simple is doing a curl, right? So a bicep curl, that's simple. And I would say that is easy. If it's, let's say, 5 kilograms, right? Then it's going to be easy. If it's 50 kilograms, all of a sudden that turns into a hard task very fast, because obviously that's like way more physically like demanding. And I haven't sort of situated the matrix 100%, so sort of in my sphere of thoughts, basically. So I'm still a little bit I'm still a little bit sort of all over the place with it. But I do think there's some amount of interesting insight there. But I want to go back about the idea that you could do anything that you wanted to. And I think that's kind of fascinating when you really think about it. You would have to reframe the idea of like, okay, sometimes there are outside forces, let's say, that prevent you from doing something. I want to take a walk. It is raining. I mean, you could still go for a walk, right? Like the rain doesn't have to stop you. There's a thunderstorm outside. Okay, maybe you shouldn't at that point go take a walk. So there are sometimes things that are outside of our control which can impact, oh, okay, I want to do something, I'm going to do it. But I don't know, when you really think about it, there's very little that can actually stop you if you actually wanted to do something. I have something written down out here. And it's interesting, right? So when you really go at it and you're like, I mean, it depends on what you want, obviously, right? So you can be like, okay, what do you like to do? Hey, I'm going to take the workout example again, because I think that it's the most generally applicable. And you basically just go ahead and say, all right, let's maybe even just start with tracking calories, right? Let's not even go for going in and being like, okay, we're going to do minus 1,000 calories. That's way too many anyway. But, you know, minus 500 calories every day and bam, bam, bam. It's like, no, you can start like in a more, and this is an interesting one, in the simple and easy quadrant, because that's the most likely time you will do it. So that's when people say you should start with something so small that you're almost like, why would I start with something so small? Well, if it's so small and easy and so, I mean, I wouldn't say unimportant, but so just insignificant in one's eyes, then if it's insignificant, then why don't you do it like that? Because it's actually not insignificant. And this sort of bleeds down into the idea of the compound effect. Super useful thing to think about. So I've been watching a couple of videos on this, and it's like, basically you can think about it like this. If I recall correctly, I think it's Jim Rohn. I think it was Jim Rohn who said it. No, it's not. It's Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy says everything counts. And the thing about it is that can be quite rough, but it can also be quite freeing. So if you have a goal, now you don't have to have certain goals, right? Like it's like, this is completely personal to you, right? Your goal could be, I want to work in a different company. I want to get a girlfriend. I want to lose weight. I want, like, any goal that you want. I want to buy a jet ski. I don't know, like whatever you have. But if you have a goal and you write it down and you look at it, then any singular task or action you take in a day, you could classify each task as plus or minus. Nothing is neutral. That's basically what the idea there says. Nothing is neutral. Everything either moves you closer to your goal or it's going to move you away from your goal. That's crazy. But it is a super interesting reframing of sort of what you're going through. And it might make things a little bit clearer on like, okay, should I really do this or not? Let's say, I don't even know, like, should I get a third drink out here? That would be another negative, right? The first two drinks were already a negative, let's say. Maybe the first drink is a positive because you're spending time with friends or something like that. But I don't know. So think about that as well. And think about the each task that you do, whether or not it brings you closer or further away from your goal. I feel like this episode was a little bit over, like, everywhere at anything, but it's fine. It happens. I also think it's probably ending right about now. So see you next time.